This community of moms was really meant to be a safe place for second mothers. And we've discovered that being a second mother is such a unique experience. I think, especially in here in the Philippines. I remember when I first started thinking about adoption, I couldn't think of one mom. I couldn't think of a single mom that I could call for advice or to talk to share my thoughts with and my anxieties with and my fears with. I couldn't think of a single one. And at that point, I guess I didn't even know how much I needed that and how big of a part that was going to play in my life as a second mother. And so experience and walking through the book has been so wonderful. And I want to thank everybody for making this such a safe place. It's been such a holy space. I feel like in every session, we've allowed God to really meet us where we're at. And my highlight has really been learning from each of you and from hearing your stories and from seeing what God has done in your lives and in
For me, my favorite and the one that impacted me is the last part, wherein John and Mary were, when Jesus said that, John, this is your mom, and mom, this is your son. For me, it was, the way I took it is both are blessings to each other, because the adoption was late. It was late in their years, and we would see, because my understanding is that when women are in those time and in the culture that they have, if the woman is a widow and loses a son, it's very bad for their status in the society. And being adopted by John and vice versa, I think that was a very powerful moment, that both are a blessing for each other.
Yeah. My favorite part in the book is actually chapter 4 about Naomi and Ruth. And it talks about that it will the chapter contains about cleaving. So as I've shared before, that it's like a covenant with God that of course my daughter is still a baby and we still have a long way to go, and I don't know if she will accept me as her mom by the time that we tell her story. But God, Lord willingly, even if she won't accept it, but me on my part, I would still cling onto it, just like how God is with us. So
Hi, Jody. First of all, thank you so much for writing the book. I think I don't think I can really pinpoint one particular that I really liked. I really was ministered to by all the stories or all the chapters in the book that we went through. I think what was really very helpful for me as a second mother is going through it with all the other second moms in this group, and at the same time your personal stories. I think I was really a wreck after reading or after we went through the story about your daughter and your son and having to find that son because he's your daughter's brother, and turned out that, oh, turns out he's the sweetest son ever, and then that he gave you the flowers for Valentine's Day, and it just really just I guess it was just very reassuring, everything that in the book, and then to going through these things with all these wonderful second mothers has been helpful in my journey, and really reassuring of the fact that God really has called us for this, and has turned me even more into every friend I talk to, I would really say I highly recommend adoption. It just really opened my heart to, okay, God, then we'll see where you want to take us next. It just allowed me and my husband to be more open to another one after this one. So thank you, Jody, and thank you, Rohe Foundation moms.
Yeah, so we actually just adopted 9 months ago, and it's really reading this book and going through all of this is a very encouraging for me. I guess like Sonja, it's the same thing. The whole book, I could not pinpoint which chapter I really like, because all of it is just amazing to go through with, of course, with these women. Um, for me, I guess really it's reassuring that this is really the heart of God, that He made adoption as a foundational in His story, and in the same way, this is also His final act. So it's amazing to be. It's actually a privilege to be able to adapt and to really act in obedience. That hey, Tin, Edre, or my husband, this is really what God has called us to do. I know there were a couple of the dark times waiting for a baby, but then this is how God led us. And yeah, it's amazing to know that it's really in the heart of God and we are just obeying, and it's really a privilege. So
Judy, thanks so much for writing this book. It gave us a fresh perspective. I especially like the topic of Hannah. It gave me a fresh perspective of the birth moms, because previously I really didn't see it how Hannah saw, from the eyes of Hannah. And it gave me some understanding of how they feel. And in the season of waiting, like you mentioned here that it's always that we're waiting for something. And I appreciated that because it gave me some kind of assurance that while we're waiting, God fulfills that need that we have. And that it also said here that I find that many of my prayers are more like begging than worshiping. So it also helped me in a way to refocus the way that I pray, the way that I pray unto worship instead of asking the Lord for some things which isn't aligned with his thoughts. So I really appreciate everything actually that's written here. It's a wonderful feeling that I'm able to share from the Bible, because I was just awed that there are so many stories in the Bible about adoption. Whereas before, I only thought of maybe Moses and Pharaoh's daughter. But then now it made me realize that, hey, there's Mordecai, and there's Esther, and there's Ruth, and there's Naomi, and there's even Jesus at the end. So it's just such a wonderful insight that I'm able to share with others.
I praise God for using you, Jody, to write this special book for us, for second moms. It's very special that all lessons or all chapters in this book are amazing. Every each lessons we can relate in any character in this story, but the most one thing that resonates to me is the last chapter. So that where especially the verse Matthew 18:5, whoever welcomes this child welcomes me. And that verse is very strong for me in terms of what is adoption. That's very strong that Jesus said it to us, that whoever welcomes a child welcomes me. And after that session, right after that our session, I shared my heart with my husband that there is something in me that opened, and I really and wanted me to foster or to adopt another child. And when I told it to him, he mentioned that's an answered prayer for me, because he's been praying for another child to adopt or to foster. So God is so amazing that in your book he touched a lot of hearts to open another home for another child.